I was talking to one of my friends from college, and he was saying, we go out with a bobber and a hook and a worm, toss it out, and he goes, that's kind of fun. And what I took from that conversation was, it's not that fun. It's fun for the kid. She gets to catch some fish here and there. She gets bored. Now he's holding the rod. He doesn't, whatever. He's just tossing it out, kind of waiting. So that can be kind of boring. But on your kid's rod, which could be an ultralight, I'll have that pop up right here, I think. It says it right on the rod. So if you look at the rod blank, not where the reel is, but like the actual fishing rod pole, on it will say, right here, you can see it, ultralight. Or you might be using a light. If you're using something heavier than that for a little kid, it's probably overwhelming. It's hard to use. That's probably the rod that you're going to be stuck around. So if you want to catch fish, do different techniques. You're already using the worm, so you can use a soft plastic worm in a different way. You don't really web it onto the hook, kind of have it more straight. That's a rigging video. That's different. If you see me throwing a big mouse and you have the light or ultralight rod, what you can do is you can throw this little frog. He's teeny, right? See. You can see how big that frog is. He's teeny, right? Bite size. You still get the same kind of hooks. So I don't know if I can show that to the camera, but really teeny hooks, just like on the bigger version. Now the difference is the gauge on the metal on the big one. Your little rod's not going to be able to set that hook. With this little guy, you can see how small it is. Over here. There we go. Hold it right here and zoom in. I don't know. No, it's the same color as my hoodie. You can throw a smaller frog, like a teeny little frog like this, on your light rod. And you can toss that out in the pads and do the same thing I'm doing with a bigger frog. So what I'm going to show you is other options that you can go out and purchase smaller lures so you can have more fun while you're fishing with your kids. Get ahead of them so when they want to learn something, you can show them something. All the skills that you pick up fishing these small lures will transfer up to these larger lures. A little wake bait has the same action and it will get the same reaction on a fish. You fish it in the same places. Let's start with the easiest lures. You could start throwing that are as far as advanced to novice. Since we're novice, we're going to stay in the novice range. So I'm not even going to show you lures that you might have to walk the dog with. Yeah, I will. But I'll just let you know it's more difficult than these other lures. We'll start with the easiest lures. First, the easiest lure is going to be just a little rubber worm. You don't need big hooks. Just need a little size 10 bait holder hook. Eagle Claw sells them. They're real small. What I do is I wacky rig these. So I hook the hook right through the center of this worm and toss it out. Now, there's no weight on it. So there's a learning curve when you toss it. But if you want to fix that problem, what you can do is you can get a split shot. That's what it's called. It's a split shot. Put the split shot on the line above it, probably say 6 to 8 inches up. So when you toss it out, the weight's going to pull that out. Then your lure will go in. The weight will sink, and then this will float 6 to 8 inches up in the water column. Fish will come on and hit it. You feel it. You don't need a bobber for that. A plastic worm you can always try. You've already done this if you use live bait, so you might want to skip worms. Let's go to, maybe you want to do something moving. This lure is a spinner bait. So if you haven't fished this yet, but you fished this little inline spinner, you can easily transition up to this type of lure. Very same retrieve. All you do is toss it out, make sure the little spinners are actually spinning. It's the only important thing. Little inline spinner. It just has a weight, treble hook, a feather, and a spinner, and then there's a little line tie right there at the top. I don't tie directly to the line because it spins. It's going to wrap your line up and then make a big bird's nest. So that's the only adjustment. You're going to put a snap swivel. You tie your line onto the snap swivel and you snap onto this. So the snap swivel will swivel, right? It makes sense once I say it out loud. It will swivel. So when this spins, it's not going to tie the line up. It's just going to spin on the swivel. So that alleviates that line twist, which will F up your rest of your fishing day. You'll be picking out the line and pulling it all out. So that's a pretty easy one that's active. And it's subsurface, so it's not on top water. Now we're going to switch to top water. All three of these are easy lures to throw. You just toss them out. You just retrieve them back to yourself. So just like the inline spinner, we'll toss this little whopper plopper or prop bait. Right on the back, there's a prop right there. There we go. So it spins around and makes a trail of bubbles. You toss this out anywhere, near shore, near a tree. Don't toss it in the tree. Toss it, just start cranking, and this little tail will start spinning around and bubbling. You can also use a snap swivel on this guy because sometimes grass will get in this little propeller, wind it up, and then the whole thing will start spinning, creating line twists. So a lot of times where I use my same rod, right, I have the snap swivel on, I'll do the inline spinner and I'll easily switch very quickly to this so I don't have to change and cut my line. Same thing if we jump up to a wake bait. For a very small ultralight rod or a light rod, you can throw this little crick hopper. I've seen them sold at Walmart. I've seen them sold at Dick's Sporting Goods. I've seen them sold at specialty, like Cabela's and stuff like that. So this is a little wake bait. And all you do is you can put a snap swivel on there if you want to. That way you The only thing you have to tie on is the snap swivel. Even for the next lure I'll show you, you can use the same snap swivel. So maybe get some snap swivels. That will make your life a lot easier so you don't have to tie on. As a dad, most of these are very easy. You just snap them on and crank it straight back. So this is a wake bait. So this is going to be a totally floating lure. This whopper plopper is also a completely floating lure, which is nice. If you're in a boat and you break off, you can go get it. The wake bait, toss it out. It's going to pop up. You know, it might sink first and then pop back up. And then you just slowly retrieve it so it kicks. Give it a little bit of wake. You can stop it, kill it, you know, keep it going. Do it quick. If you do it quick, it will start diving down. A lot of times if there's submerged structure like trees, that's when you're going to want to throw a whopper plopper, a crick hopper, because you're not going to get stuck in those branches. The wake bait's a great one. You're going to get some topwater blow-ups. The same thing with this whopper plopper. It's one of the most exciting bites. You can do it on, let's say, light rod. I don't want to underpower you, but if it's a really long ultralight, you probably can get away with it. Might snap it, depending on the fish size. Probably not. Ultralight, light rod, I've never had a problem with those guys. Throw in these. And then when you hook up, the rod's going to do all the work. You just got to reel it in. Yeah, topwater is fun. Another topwater. So this is another easy one. You can just snap swivel on this guy. This is a hulu popper, so the little version of this guy. So you just snap that on right there. Toss it straight out, and you're going to put your rod down at the water like this, and just go pop, pop, and the thing's going to chug in the water and spit water. Basically, that's what draws the fish, that movement, these dangly things behind it, and the water spurting. This is one of my favorites. This is a little more complicated. We're jumping up into, you can't just crank it straight back. This guy you're going to have to walk the dog with, which is you have slack line out, and you tap your rod. It's a certain amount of slack line, so you have to play around and figure it out. This applies to frogging as well. So frogs and this, there's a walking the dog action. Frogs, you can kind of just pop them sometimes, especially if it's over pads. But open water, this thing is going to be doing this, right? It's going to be walking back, wagging back and forth, barely moving. And if you get good at it, it doesn't move at all. It just kind of makes a big commotion. It's got some clackers in there. It's got 3 trebles. This is probably going to be on a medium heavy rod if I was going to throw it. For ultralight and light, they make a littler guy. This is called the Zara Puppy. It's the same exact, well, teenier, smaller tin balls, but you can toss this out. It's a little easier on, I found when I was walking the dog and learning, it was a lot easier on a light and ultralight rod as opposed to when I try to use one of these big guys. When I went out with an ultralight and light rod using the spook, what I found, I tossed this out, right? And that light rod, because it's parabolic and the tip of it bends over more, it was doing most of the work for me. So I didn't have to have that much slack out. Like the line would give me the slack and the rod would give me the slack. So basically it's tap, tap, and it goes tap, tap, tap. So every time you want it to get to make a cut, you're tapping the rod. So every time you see it, tap, 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 tap. So pap, 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 pap. And you go pap, 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 pap. You can change your cadence on it. You can change it up so it's cutting back and forth. Get it to walk it right next to those lily pads and then stop it and just pause. Give it like 4 seconds. And then tap, tap, kind of let it hang out in that area. And it's what the kids call soaking it. So if it's sitting there soaking, it's basically waiting to get bit. Now we're going to jump up to the frog, but you can toss this little teeny frog that is even as big as my thumb, maybe the first digit. So you can toss this thing right into the weeds and stuff because you're using lighter line. You don't want to get wrapped around too much stuff on top of pads if you're in the water. I wouldn't snap swivel to this. And the same thing applies. You're going to try to walk it, but really what you're doing with this little guy is he's going to land on the pads in the water. His legs are going to be dangling down. You kind of pop, hop him. You got to pretend like you're imitating like a little frog moving, right? You're not huge jumps. This thing's not, I mean, I've seen frogs jump. I'm sure you have too. They jump pretty good, but in the water, there's bloop, bloop, bloop. If they want to take off, they will. But typically on top of the water, they're just kind of making small hops, hanging out a lot. So I try to put them in between pads, right? So their little legs are dangling. And if you can just give it a little jiggle and the legs are going to jiggle. Those are all top water baits. So you can use all of those roughly around the same time. Frogs obviously in the pads. Everything else is kind of open water. Hopefully this makes the next fishing event you have with your children a little more exciting. It'll give you something to do. You can bring a whopper plopper. That's fun to throw. That'll keep you entertained. This cricket will probably get you bit quickest. If I was going to guess out of these lures, the popper is always fun. And then if you want to get more complicated, go ahead and grab an inline spinner, popper, or a little frog. Thanks for watching this week. I hope everyone has a great week. Hope you have a great rest of your day, evening, morning. Catch you next week.